Okay.
No promises.
All right, if we're ready, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Quick roll call for the official record.
Grady Bonsall,
Here.
Dennis Sneda,
Here.
Matt McKenzie,
Here.
Wally Henson.
Here.
All right. With that, the next thing is public comment. So any public comment outside of the variance request? Looks like there's none. So with that, we'll move straight into the variance request at 811 East Highway 24.
Keep going down. So it's up there. Just go up just a little bit. There you go. Members of the commission in this capacity, you're going to be acting as the Board of Zoning Appeals. You shall hear all facts and testimony from all parties wishing to be heard concerning the requested variance. In each case, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not grant a variance unless it finds, based on the evidence presented, that each. Can you enlarge that just a tad? I could look on my own instead of looking at the screen. Unless it finds, based on the evidence present, facts which conclusively support all the following findings: that it's the uniqueness, that it doesn't affect adjacent property, it's a hardship for the owners, there's a public interest that's not violent. It is in the public interest to grant the variance in the spirit and intent of the zoning ordinance, and also it's the minimum variance allowed. So the variance procedure is included in your packets. It's from the Planning Commission Procedures Manual. It was included in a previous packet. And this is just the memo that Zach and I put together for you. And then we have a staff memo on the actual variance itself. And that's what's included. And then there's a site plan review, which we'll get to as a subsequent item on the agenda. But then what's included in your packet, starting on page 5, and maybe I can sit next to Wally so you can see my screen as well as that's there. Is the actual application from the applicants, Douglas and April Hall. And the property information is 811 East Highway 24, tract of land in the northwest quarter of section 29, 839, range 8, township 39. And the adjacent zoning and land use across the way on Highway 24 is Peterbilt. It's vacant to the south until it gets to a residential area. To the east is a storage building, and there is one residence in there, but it's still commercial. And to the west is vacant land and farmland at that location. And they included in here and what's included on their application. What they're looking as proposed use of the property is recreational vehicle and boat storage, a limited number of RV campsites, 10 or less, 8 to 10, possibly a few more in the future. Provide a quiet, clean alternative to Walmart and other locations for limited overnight sites, promoting area and eateries to bring additional revenue to the community. And it talks about utilities there. But then they have an and these are the 5 items that you need to give an answer for on uniqueness, adjacent property, hardship, public interest, spirit and intent, and the minimum variance allowed. And that's what they provided. And a copy of the notice that went out. And it shows in the variance procedure the findings of the Board of Zoning Appeals on each of the following conditions. And then you give an overall approval or disapproval. So there's was notice. And 2 more pages down, Zach. And this is still from the applicant. And you can ask for the applicant to present their information if you'd like, Matt,
Yeah, Doug Rapel.
rather than me reading it off.
Yeah, why don't we have you guys walk us through that instead of, yeah, either, you're fine right there.
Yeah, for the live stream, probably. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yep.
Okay. Thank you guys for being here tonight. This is like, obviously all new to us. We farmed 25 miles out in the middle of nowhere, where it's like, you just do what you want to do. And so this has been a big learning curve, and I'm not sure it already, sometimes we go, not sure if we're wanting to go this curve, but no, it's been good. So can I give a little bit of history, just kind of, so I think I have that in one of the packets. I submitted 2 packets, one for the variance and then one for the
Site
plan,
plan.
and I suppose you guys do both of those.
Yep.
So we bought this property at the tax sale last November, and very hard bidder bidding against us. But we had it in mind for putting up RV and boat storage, because, I mean, we personally own an RV, we own a boat, and there's no place in town to store those. However, a lot of people have gotten very, as he drives around town, or someone have gotten very creative on how they're being stored. Anyway, so we thought, well, there's a need for that. And as we started looking at the land, once we got the title cleared, because obviously when you buy tax sale property in Kansas, you technically don't have a clear title. So once we went through the quiet title process and got it all cleared, we started looking at the property, what we were going to do with it, and kind of some of the plans, and we realized there's like 1.5 acres to 2 acres that we're not using. What are we going to do with it? I mean, kind of up towards the front of it. And if any of you have driven by there, you can see that we've already, I think, in my opinion, made some very big strides out there. The business that kind of sits at the edge of ours, we had him clean his stuff all up. We've been mowing all summer. We have the driveway chip sealed, and I think it's a very presentable looking property right now instead of a lot of weeds, and it doesn't look as in disrepair as what it did. And I think that's very important coming into our community. That's what we need, is things that maybe they don't have big buildings on them or big businesses on them, but clean up, look nice, look presentable. But anyway, we decided, well, what are we going to do with the front part of that? And we kind of threw around some things, and like I said, we personally camp, we personally boat, and I kind of got to doing some research and started finding reviews about, a lot of people. Obviously, we have a wonderful KOA here. That's kind of a hidden little gem. And I challenge you to go on and read the reviews about it. It's great reviews. We have a nice KOA. We have another campsite on the other side of town, and there's a lot of people that do a lot more traveling than they used to be, not just the summer travelers, and so they're looking for places to stay. Instead of just being, people used to go out for a week, so they'd go KOA to KOA to KOA. Now they're like, okay, we're getting to somewhere, let's stay cheap, and then spend more money, because quite frankly, you get to some of the big areas and some of these campsites are like $150 a night. So we thought, 3 or 4 sites, 5, 6, maybe 10 sites we can fit in there. Maybe that's a possibility to just provide an alternative to the Walmarts, or people just parking alongside the road somewhere. Or you see people on the overpasses, anywhere where it's not really safe. Big community chats going around about staying at Walmart has become not as as safe as it used to be. And so a lot of people are trying to find alternatives to that without spending a whole lot of money. Like I said, they've got a nice place to stay. They're not looking for that swimming pool and destination and all that stuff, just a place to pull in and stay. So we thought, well, maybe we could look at that. So that's where we started. That's when I contacted the city. Knew enough about things. That's where we thought we had to start. So that's kind of a little background of where we were. Uniqueness, city ordinances defines that.
A trailer camp.
Which one of those should we address though? Which ordinance?
Well,
So go with
let's just
the
do
main
with
one.
what your application is
Yeah.
right now
The
with the
main one
trailer camp.
addresses a trailer camp is 5 acres or more. The whole lot is 3 acres. Even if we encompass that to what we'd ever want to manage, we might cover an acre and a half. So we're under that 5 acres. I think that's a recommendation. Some people could take that and say, well, then I don't even need to go to the city. I don't qualify, but I don't take it that way. I think anything that goes into a community like this needs to be the code, be presentable, and represent the community the best they can. So, it definitely is by definition way smaller than by the definition. Adjacent property, obviously, like that one said, businesses, vacant land. The neighbors to our west are ecstatic because he's been mowing that lot for years. So he's glad to see us in there cleaning it up because they obviously live right there. Rodeo arena to the back side of it, which would be, a little distance from where we are. The campsites would be anyway, but I don't think it would, it definitely would not affect any of the adjacent properties. Hardship, and that's where we're kind of talking about tonight. Section 9-113 addresses installing a building that has a toilet, lavatory, and a shower for both male and female. I kind of did some research without any heaters, without any plumbing, and a lot more expense. Just putting up a building would be over $45,000. Then by the time you put in the heaters, the plumbing, you're probably talking $65,000. The other intent that, I could see this turning into a roadside rest area. There we go. We had one at one time where the little greenhouse is down the road, and that was obviously taken out for a lot of reasons, the upkeep, maintenance. This operation is intended to be as hands-free as possible. Bookings will be on site. Of course, we'll have to be out there, make sure trash is picked up, make sure, utilities are working correctly and things like that. So it's not going to be completely hands-free, but I'm not doing this to go out and scrub toilets every day. I'm sorry, but I just don't think most of the people the target people that we're looking at possibly being in there are self-contained. They don't want to use a public, if you go and read a lot of sites for smaller private, they're like, we're not using public toilets, we're not using public showers. That's why we travel in a camper. We have our own, we're self-contained. We have our own facilities. We have no need for those. So I think for an operation this size, if it ever gets, I'm just throwing out a number, 20, 25, maybe then it warrants it. But for an operation, 8 to 10, I don't think it warrants having a quote public facility there. Public interest. I don't think that not having one would adversely affect any public health, safety, morals, or order. In fact, probably not having one would more affect public health because, like I said, I know, Zach mentioned, well, you could put key codes on it, and you could do this, and you could do that, and I don't disagree with that. can see anybody and everybody pulling in, using it, going on, and I really don't care to clean up the cities. I told Zach one day, I worked in Colby a day a week, and I saw somebody showering themselves over by the dog park one day, and I don't think that's what I care to do, is clean up after
Yeah.
those people.
Yeah.
The spirit and intent of the project, Grady and Crest would not be opposed to the spirit and intent of zoning regulations for sites that are larger. Over, say, a 20 service building would be probably feasible at that point. Initially, we're proposing 8 to 10 sites, maybe in the future adding another 5. And I'm gonna tell you right now, we may not even be able to put in 8 to 10 because, okay, this is good land, but who knew you can't find dirt in good land? So we may not even be able to put but just the 4 or 5 in on the west. And then if we can locate some more dirt, have some more built in to make those, the east side ones level. So right now, and I mean, it could change, but there wouldn't be any more than 10 right now. The most we could put in there would be 10. To allow the installation of the site without a service benefit will allow us to continue the project, because I'll be real honest, 8 to 10 sites, I don't think I can pencil out by the time you put your utilities in, the plumbing in. We are gonna have to have a considerable amount of dirt moved, because the west side where they demoed the original hotel, the drainage is, I mean, it's got a pool in the middle of it. There's buried construction material, and a lot of things that's gonna have to be cleaned up before we can do anything. Our intent is we'd like to go in and get it all leveled up, get it presentable, so that if we ever do decide to do anything with the rest of it, we could do that. But, so, I mean, we're looking at that last bid we got to level up and bring dirt in is over $55,000. We did have to buy a utility transformer and a water meter, because those are taken out, and I understand that, we didn't know that, that's part of my learning curve. When the city raises property, they just, am I saying that right? They automatically take out the water hookup and the service utility.
Yeah,
Utilities
on
service.
any demolition of property,
Yeah. And I
yes.
get why you do that. Once it was explained to me at first, I thought that's.
We don't want anything contaminating the system, obviously.
Exactly, and
So.
in most cases, those are probably old, like Fallon. That meter could have been when they first built Motel 7, or it's still Boynton Hotel to me.
Yeah.
So I kind of grew up
Yeah.
in that area riding horses. So when I spent day after day in that little barn there at the rodeo arena, 12 hours a day there, just hanging out with Mr. Boynton, but that's kind of where we are. The one thing I want to do with this property, whether where it ends up, like I said, we're kind of in the big planning, and kind of depends on what you guys decide tonight, but as most of you know, I've lived here all my life. I'm very involved in the community. I would like to have this, I mean, I could see all kinds of things that could be done there within the site very inexpensively, working with SCCD and other boards to promote the community. You know, maybe they're pulling in overnight, but let's send them downtown, send them over to eat, you know, have them lots of flyers and brochures, and the Van Gogh's right there, the dog park's right there, the museum's right there within walking distance, the pool's not that far. It's a unique, very unique location for those things. And then if we can, I would like to promote, you know, taking them into our businesses. Sometimes I read a lot of the different blogs and stuff, and a lot of the overnight people kind of forget that even when they pull into a community, that there's a downtown or other places, because they've got their food, they've got their showers, they've got their bathrooms, they don't need to go outside, but, you know, a lot of them are like, oh, you know, make it a point, if Harvest Host is one, you know, make it a point to go see, you know, visit your communities that you're staying in, and a lot of them are like, oh, we're not just here for one night, now we're here for 3 nights, you know. So, and that's what I like to do. I want to promote Goodland. I think it's a good place to be. I don't plan on being anywhere else. that out, I'd love to
Sure.
answer anything I might be able to, if I can.
April, you guys are thinking there'll be full amenity spots, so water, sewer, electricity?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
50 amp. Yeah,
Okay.
50, 30 amp, and then, the sewer, if you drive out by there, there's the raised sewer pipes.
Yep.
So the sewer's gonna be, I always say fairly easy, and Doug looks at me like, maybe not that easy. Fairly easy to hook back into. So I'll be honest, we don't use, like, we're going to South Fork next week, we were up at Estes Park at the end of the month, then last month, and they had sewer hookups, and like, most people don't use them other than the day they're leaving.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice, it's either you put that in, or you have to put in in my opinion, you need to put in a main dump station. And I know there's a lot of places that don't have either, I'm not saying in this community, but other places, they don't have either. And they direct them to, I think Co-op has a dump station, maybe
Other
24/7.
It
rest
used to.
stop,
That.
Goodland Rest Stop, I think has one too.
Oh, okay,
I
yeah.
think so.
Direct them to those places that, it's kind of I mean, to me, it is kind of nice if you're staying in, if you've been on the road for a week, and it's kind of a nice place to pull in and clean out. And for the lack of more details, I won't share. But
A question I have around the city's policy around something like a harvest host. So April mentions harvest host. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but it's essentially businesses or farms or whatever offer overnight camping, and you usually, the cost is you support their business in some way. And in my past, we've used it a bunch, and in some places we've stayed within city limits of cities. Like there was a museum in one town, we camped in their parking lot one night. So I don't know if the city of Goodland has a policy around a harvest host, but we never stayed in one that had any amenities. We just dry camped while we were there. So maybe that's what makes this different than that. But
there are harvest hosts that do have amenities. And there's also another side, and I haven't decided, I'm just through harvest hosts out there. There's 2 or 3 other sites that are very similar, but they're a little bit, they're more for probably our size. But harvest hosts, usually there's like maybe 4 sites there that you can pull in. You pull in the middle of a pasture sometimes, or you pull in up next to a barn and watch the chickens and goats. And we're not having chickens and goats, just, I don't do chickens or goats.
So to
But-
answer your question, Matt,
yeah,
you cannot stay outside of a trailer camp unless you come to the city and apply, and then I can issue a permit for up to 30 days.
so how do you handle Walmart?
Good question,
That's
thank
a
you.
tough one.
And the other thing is the Goodland Welcome Center says you can park in their parking lot for up to 24 hours.
Yeah, up to 24 hours, that's not gonna be too much of a problem.
Which would be more than what they would probably.
So what I'm trying to establish here is who the competitor is. Is the competitor Walmart and the Welcome Center and a harvest host in another town, or is the competitor the KOA in Mid-America?
We actually have a harvest host in Julie.
Oh, we do. I
The
didn't know
golf
that.
course, because you can join
Mm.
harvest host, or you can join harvest host golf course, or you can join harvest host combo, I don't know what the word is for it. And the golf course is, and we don't go out there very often. Can't believe how many people are out there, which I know that's outside the city
Yeah.
limits, but
Because I think what we're getting at is, who do we, what makes them different from, if it's full amenities and there's several spots, then it starts to look more like KOA, even though they have more amenities. But if it's no amenities and it's just an overnight thing, and, then it looks more like Walmart or the Welcome Center parking lot. And we're not really regulating either one of those right now, it doesn't sound like.
Not unless there's extended stays, then it gets to be, we
Right.
need to move on. But extended stays get to be a problem. But no, to me, the competitors, it's a trailer camp. Or we'll go through another section as well on another name
Yeah.
that gets involved in the code. But But no, it's a trailer camp regarding it, so.
And just a little bit more clarification and more for you than anything. I'm about working together in a community to get to the right solution, and I don't intend on competing against you in 5 spots. However, I mean, it would be kind of nice if we could work together, you know, like I'm full, hey, go down to KOA, or you're full, you know, there's this
Yeah.
lake right down the road,
Mhm.
that has a few spots, check them. But I thought the very same thing that you thought, that you said about Walmart. I mean, it kind of seems, yeah, and I don't mean this, I mean, I don't feel like this, but yet it kind of seems, it's kind of like, okay, you regulate this place, but you don't regulate this place, when in all actuality, they're probably staying at our place or theirs for less time than they stay at Walmart or the Welcome Center. But with that said, with all the travel that's going on right now, but you drive down the interstate, count how many motor vehicles, RVs.
Yeah.
Some of them, I'm told Doug, don't buy me a teardrop because I'm not staying in that. Those are little, they're like, not even a bedroom. I don't think that Goodland, can really offer, I mean, they could offer too many, but I don't think at this point, like, us putting 8 to 10 is gonna overdo that. But with that said, wouldn't it be great if people looked Goodland up on the map and said, "Phew, there's a couple places we can stay there, let's pick," instead of, let's drive on through Goodland, because there's no places to stay.
Yeah.
I mean, because they go to Walmart and buy groceries, they go to restaurants and eat, you know, they do drop some money in town, while there's not
Yeah.
a lot of other money that's
Yeah,
not
what's your
unfortunately
comment?
that the town benefits from.
Well, we've heard from the applicant now we can ask if anybody else wants to speak on it. And I think there's a representative from Goodland KOA here.
Yeah.
Before staff goes through the staff report and
Yep.
the procedures.
Sorry. So I'll just speak to some effect and just, if you guys have any questions.
What's your name, first of all?
I'm Sean with the KCN Campgrounds. KCN Campgrounds is the company that owns the Goodland KOA Journey. I work with the operations side of the business. I run the daily operations of, as of right now, 7 different KOA campgrounds. So to the, for what applies to Goodland, with our expansion that you guys approved, we have had an increased flow of RV traffic to the campground. Our business has probably gone up about 20 to 30% since the expansion was approved. And that is because what was happening prior to this is we didn't have long enough sites for bigger motor homes, fifth wheels, and travel trailers to stay at the campground. And since we've opened up the back and added the 31 sites to the back, we are able to have more campers staying here that are in the 40 feet long motor homes, the 45 feet fifth wheel, and the 40 feet travel trailer staying there. Since we have remodeled the bathroom at the campground, which we had to during the off season because we had piping that erupted because the piping froze over the winter because of thermostat mishap. We have seen where our bathroom use was probably around 40% prior to that. It has increased about 60%. And the reason for that is one is because they look really nice because of the renovation. And with the campers that are traveling through, they find is our bathrooms, especially our showers, are much larger than the ones that are in their campers. So they use it because they get more room and have more space to be able to use. And a lot of times with, depending on the camper style, they get more hot water than what the, tank on their, camper is able to be used.
Good.
Did you guys have any questions?
Well, can you live with him and can you live with them?
I would assume we would be able to, because what, KOA has done a, study over the, last year, just to see where the post, COVID travel plans look like. As of, the study came out this summer with the statistics. Majority of campers are beginning to travel post Labor Day. And with our campground, we close on October 31st because the weather is not conducive for us to be able to remain open. And we just want to get enough travelers to cover the cost of remaining open.
If, I might add to that, just, I mean, like I said, I think there's enough room in Billund for both businesses, because KOA is more of a, I don't wanna use the word destination site, but, you know, travelers with kids. They got a pool, they've got all kinds of things to entertain those kids. I'm looking at more of the market of the Doug and I headed to Yellowstone or somewhere. I just need a nice, safe place to stay overnight. I mean, I don't care
Yeah.
about the pool, and I don't care about the golf courses, and the mini golf courses, and I don't know what else you got.
We
Is there
don't
any
have,
golf
no,
course
we
out
got
there?
rid of the mini
Oh,
golf.
see, I'm pumping y'all up, there you are. But,
So,
you know, it's a different, to me, sometimes it's gonna be the same audience, but for the most part, I think it'd be probably a different audience. And I drive by your place all the time, and in the summertime, how
we
can you
felt-
turn people away a lot?
Well, this year with the expansion, we
Yeah, not so
haven't,
much,
not
okay.
because of the expansion being open,
Yeah.
we haven't had to. But last year we did,
Yeah,
but we didn't have the expansion at
Yeah.
the time.
but even with that, I think, you know, so how many sites do you have with your expansion?
We probably have a total of, I wanna say about 75 sites.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's enough room for both, I really do. I mean, like I said, to me, it's like, God forbid, we never have another grocery store, there's enough room in town for 2 grocery stores, or 2
Yeah.
filling stations, or 2 things like that. I mean, to me, that's kind of the same thing, 2 hotels. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a different market, who stays in one hotel, can't afford to stay there, or wouldn't stay there because of whatever, but they'll go somewhere else and stay. I mean, I kind of look at that. KOE has very specific, ways that they advertise. I mean, they're self-advertised. They have a book, they have an internet site that you go on and say, I'm traveling from wherever to wherever, and there's a KOA at Billund that's about the right amount of driving distance. Well, there you go, there's a reservation. You know, ours would be more the, if we sign up, I can't remember the other, welcome something, my mind is totally blank, there's another
Yeah.
camp group that's kind of like, Harvest Host that is smaller and they're not as well known, but if we sign up with something like that to help us with our bookings and things like that, you know, there's a whole group of people that travel with those, and like people that used to travel, you know, you never stayed anywhere but Motel 7 or Holiday Inn or things like that, so some people are just, I mean, they're gonna always stay at KOA, they're gonna drive an extra 100 miles if they have to stay at KOA, where we're kind of that in-between to kind of keep people maybe out of the Walmart or out of another parking lot, so.
Are you planning on being open 365 days a year, or just
Initially-
seasonal, or?
Initially, I'm not sure how that's gonna work for sure, but, that's kind of what we're thinking, you know. If there's not enough people that wouldn't justify, you know, maybe we have to drain everything and not, but, I mean, it's kind of, some of ours is gonna be by trial and error, to be real honest with you, because we are small enough that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we don't have, I don't wanna say the, numbers to defeat the overhead in some areas, so some of that may be trouble in there, so.
The other question I was thinking about was, are you gonna have like a minimum, maximum time they can stay there, or like, we don't want somebody moving in, I guess, is.
Right, and I think there's some, we talked about that, something that, you know, there may be a need, and I honestly thought that's what you guys were doing, adding them back, because, you guys all know how short housing is. If they start working on, what was the Great Western to me, I keep dating myself. Well, no, Great Western, the old sugar beet factory, what
Oh,
Schooler's bought.
Schooler,
I'm old, sorry guys.
Schooler.
Those, they start coming and renovate. I look for a lot of people, construction people, to move in, stay 3 months, and that's how those people travel anymore, is campers. So,
Yeah.
you know, we have to come get a, but I, you know, like your sites are perfect for that, but you won't be able to stay. Yeah, yeah.
Which we are in the process of, we got a questionnaire from the city, to look at the potential of, having some of our sites open during the off-season for long-term for the harvesters that come through the area.
And that's kind of another target we thought. I know we had some harvesters contact us. I was telling him this afternoon, that Kent this afternoon, that, I work over in Colby one day for a financial management company, and so happened to be the ex-fire chief came in, and I was talking to him because I was in the military and I hear about some things, and he told me that they put in, because they've got a lot of construction going on over there and just no place for those people to stay. They took 2 parking lots basically and put electrical and water. And I don't think there's even sewer, so I think they have to use their little tanks that they put on back their campers. And I don't think they even have sewer to them, but that is their only intent, is to use for long-term stay people, because these construction people that come in, whenever there's anything going on that's, you know, lasting more than a couple months, that's why most of them travel anymore. They have their own houses with them, if you will. So, and you're seeing more and more of that. We at Estes Park camped by a guy that's from down around Austin. He's a traveling nurse, and he basically lives in his camper 365 days a year, unless he's off work and then he's at home. But he just pulls around, so he's got his house right with him all the time. So I think there's a need. I think there's plenty of room for both, and I sure would entertain, you know, both of us working together. I don't think it does any good for 2 businesses to not work together.
So Kent, maybe let's go through your findings
Sure,
and see what other questions that generates.
sure.
Still have a couple rattling around my head, but I want to hear what you got to say. So,
Well, the variance, and where is that? It's in the page 30 and on is where the staff report starts. Now, the 2 things that are requested on the variance, and it has it right there at the beginning, and I guess we didn't put that at the very beginning, but the definition of a trailer camp is in 9-101, which says, it lists a bunch of things, a bunch of definitions, but among that is a trailer camp is a tract of land with 5 acres or more, containing sites for the overnight or short-term parking of house trailers. A trailer camp cannot be located in R1, R2, R3 zones, which is kind of interesting since we don't have an R3, but when they put in the zoning code, that was part of it.
Yeah.
Now, the part that's request to vary from is it requires 5 acres or more. So that's one question, and the attorney wanted me to make sure there's 2 questions on this, there's 2 variances. So you're gonna have to say
take each one separate.
each one,
Mhm.
yes or no. So it's not yes overall or no overall, it's on each question. Then the second thing is on service buildings, which is copied in your packet. is, it talks about that section on service buildings, 9.113. And each park serving or intended to serve one or more house trailers and all camps shall be provided with one or more service buildings which shall blah, 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 blah. All these different things. And it goes into the criteria, which April generously covered on some of those things. So that's, and it does get to be, to have female and male facilities. I'm grateful we still get to call it female and male facilities. Sorry, that shouldn't be a soapbox comment, but so that's one part of it. So those are the two questions before you, the two variances. Now, as you go on down onto the bottom of page 33, Zach, is where the staff comments start. The application does appear to be in order, and it should allow the board to make findings as to whether all the requirements have been satisfied. If the variance is granted, all other requirements for the trailer camp will still be followed. And April and Doug, right, I'm sorry, they haven't said anything regarding the other requirements. They don't have any problems with the other requirements for the trailer camp. Now, while the application is proper, it does not meet the requirements of the code, and being unique to this property or a hardship, the other trailer camps in this jurisdiction have had to abide by the code that require facilities for men and women to use the restroom or shower. The other trailer camp owners have also stated the facilities get used more frequently than not, which is what you heard also in the testimony time. In the letter sent to the building official, the applicant stated they can meet the standard city codes requiring utilities. However, then they request a variance from the service building and the utilities due to the size of the site. And some of it, you got to take that into serious consideration regarding it. The purpose of the lot being required to be 5 acres is to provide a separation for lighting, odor, and noise. That's usually what a lot of zoning requirements are about, is how is it going to affect the neighbors. And April described, the applicant described really well how currently there's not a whole lot of neighbors. You always got to keep in mind, and I remind planning commissions and the zoning boards an awful lot, zoning appeals. That's what it is currently. That doesn't mean that's what it's going to be for all time. So you have to take that into consideration. I do think that the 5 acre is kind of an arbitrary. It's just kind of, okay, that's a size, and Zach made a point, we made a point to, estimate using the GIS or the GIS software how close the nearest residence is. And there's an aerial picture of the site with the site outlined in red. And you can notice that there's and that there really isn't anything to the west
Yeah.
of the operation. To the east, it's kind of mixed, but it is a commercial zone.
Yep.
To the south, even though those people, for the most part, are outside city limits, what you see in the green there is the commercial zoning. They left it as residential for that strip on the bottom underneath the 83.2 feet. And there is one house there, but it is quite a bit of distance to that house.
300.
The house outside the county, it's about 300 feet from the edge of the property. So that gives you an idea of the proximity. And I don't know if you guys visited the site when you were notified of this.
I've been by.
And you guys have my map that I kind of
Right.
Yeah, on the site plan, yeah.
put in where we, where we'd like to have campsites. I mean, if we would ever expand 5 or 6 more sites, can you bring that map back up, Zach? on the end of that pavement's where a big storage building's gonna be, and then there'll be another one down at the south end. So just kind of, so the campsites, if you will, would all stay on the north side of the property.
And you can go back to well, after we put the notice in the paper and sent notices to the neighboring property owners, then staff had quite a bit of discussion last week because we found another section of the code. And are you able to bring that up on the screen or no? You probably aren't. Maybe you are. In section 19, it's not a section of the code. I mean, it's within the zoning code, but they passed this. The trailer camp section of the code, section 9, is from the 1970s. When they had the zoning code, there's a whole bunch within it, but then they also passed go up a little bit, within the table, it gives a use table. And we've, I think, talked about this in section 19, where it tries to categorize a lot of different uses and then tells you where it's permitted and not permitted. Is it permitted in residential zones? Go to the very top, Josh, of this. And
So the first 4 are residential zones and the last 4 are commercial industrial zones.
and it gives all kinds of uses, and it'll give you different uses, accessory uses, home occupations, temporary uses, and then agricultural uses, residential uses, and it continues on and on and on. Well, within that use table, it has RV park, which then we went to the next section, which describes it, and I'm going to bring it up on my screen so that I can. Uh, 19501 is the use table. 19502 is then use standards. And then within the use standards, under T, 19502T, they have RV park.
Which is a different definition than what the.
It's a different definition than the trailer. Well, it describes the same
Yeah,
type of vehicles.
yeah, but with a
Yeah.
different term. which is-
I mean, there's a little bit of variation, but not enough to make
Right,
a huge difference. But then it talks about RV parks and that they shall be permitted according to the following conditions. And in this one, it says the minimum tract size shall be 2 acres, not 5, which the tract for Doug and April Hall is 3 acres, so they obviously fit. But it's only allowed, again, in commercial districts and industrial. It's not allowed in residential districts. So that matches the trailer camp. And it says the maximum number of RV spaces allowed shall not be more than 20 per acre, which doesn't matter too much regarding this. The one thing it doesn't have, it says a central office or convenience established with an attendant shall be provided within the RV park to register guests and provide service and supervision for any camps in excess of 5 acres. And it's interesting that it says camps there, not RV park. I have a real problem with the language in this thing. And then they give what is needed to apply for that. And that they shall be you know, lighting and parking and other information, but it doesn't mention anything about a service facility or restrooms and showers, which is, so how do, we're going to have a situation where we're going to suggest an amendment to the code to address this differentiation between the two. And I told April this afternoon, staff still feels strongly regarding the service building part. Now that will obviously be up to, when we have a text amendment change to the code, we bring it to you guys for recommendation to the city commission, and then the city commission makes the final decision. So we'll present you with that regarding that. But what the variance request is about the trailer camp back in section 9. It's not about this. But staff wrestled with this last week because, okay, we have two different categories that kind of describe the same use, but then they have different standards within it. And I'm kind of glad that the variance request was put in because it brought this to light. And it also brought to light so that we could notify the neighbors and let them know what's going on. So that provides a little bit of complication to what is described to you. Now, after talking with the attorney and with staff, you know, we still want to go through it. What's included in your packet here, at the end of the staff, says, after review of the city code, this variance can be withdrawn based on the following findings of the use standards and regulations of the zoning code. If they were to apply as an RV park, then they would be in compliance. An RV park only requires a lot of 2 acres or in one ownership with a maximum of 20 vehicles per acre. And the RV park doesn't require, right now, service buildings. But the staff then it goes on to say, the staff presented proposed motions based on each issue. The board will be asked to approve or disapprove each variance request separately. So that's how we got to this point. And I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a complication because of the 2 categories within the code. But the one was specifically passed. The trailer camp was a section specifically passed, not as a bigger part of the bigger ordinance. The RV park was part of the zoning ordinance. That one was done in 2001. And it just wasn't caught at that time. You know, we've done some preparation over the months trying to go over different parts of that, what to do the zoning ordinance, to do the comprehensive plan, what additional things do you have to look out for? You're not going to be able to foresee every circumstance, but you try to foresee most of them. So that's what we found, that, you know, I think the size issue is much less problematic from the staff's recommendation point of view. One, because what's currently there, it's not going to affect the neighboring properties. And it's hard to see in the future that there would, you can't absolutely foretell what's going to happen, but it's unlikely to have an issue with the neighbors regarding the size. And I don't see anything that says why 5 acres is a special amount.
Yeah. It was a round number they chose.
It's a round.
Yeah.
Well, and 5 acres is kind of a common
Yeah.
in zoning
Yeah.
size for a lot of different things.
That lot probably originally wasn't in, so the same, you know, Boynton's down the arena and that little.
Yeah, it's been subdivided over the years. Yeah.
and SCRs.
Yep, that got divided
in
off.
that
Yeah.
area. And that it probably originally was, I mean, what you said is.
Yeah, probably was.
It probably was about 5 acres at one time.
So let's take care of since we have to do it separately anyway,
Yeah.
let's, now this, what I copied there is what April put in there, April and Doug put in their application, marking yes to each of those. What I'm showing Wally here, or was included in your packet. But on each of these, either need to have a consensus and what are your findings? Is it unique to the property? The variance for the size. The variance requested arises from conditions which are unique to the property in question, which are not ordinarily found in the same zoning district, and which are not caused by actions of the property owners or applicant. Such conditions include the physical surroundings, shape, or topographical condition of the property would result in a practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship for the applicant. Now, as far as the variance request regarding size, what would you say is your response to that?
I mean, I think I can see that, yeah, I mean, it probably fits the uniqueness around size. I mean, it is what it is, right? It's a 3-acre site. And because there's some contradiction in the ordinance versus the code, I could get my head around that, we could allow a 3-acre site to be acceptable.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I can see that.
The one question I had, it got answered in here, was around vehicle density, and that is spelled out, and it was spelled out again in the RV park discussion. So I think that, I get worried about saying we're going to allow a smaller site and then you try to pack 50 trailers in there. But it's pretty clear in the code, both the code and the ordinance, that density is called out both
Right.
places. So
And I think we've allowed enough room. I might show it as well, because I did it myself, didn't hire an architect. I mean, we've stayed at places that I don't want people paying for a site that they're sitting on top. I mean, I see these places where you have to go out, put your slide outs out, make sure you're not hitting the other person's picnic table. And that is not what we want for safety concern, for just general satisfaction of the public.
So I guess for findings in there, just so that we can have some wording around it.
I think you were good with what you said.
Okay. I mean, given the physical surroundings, the shape of the lot, I mean, there's plenty of space. The density is well defined on how many vehicles you can put on there. Seems like the uniqueness fits. You guys agree?
I agree.
How about adjacent property?
Yeah, I think you did a good job of calling that out. I mean, we're pretty well surrounded by commercial zoning, except we get close to the old Armstrong addition, but looks like we're far enough away.
There,
So,
what'd you say, 300 feet?
yeah.
Yeah.
Even thinking about your comment around future land use out there, given the proximity to Highway 24, it's likely to stay commercial.
Yeah.
It's not suited well for residential. So I think thinking longer term, my expectation would be it stays commercial. So,
Yeah.
I agree.
yeah, I think it fits for adjacent property.
How about hardship?
Well, April's comments were good in there. I mean, it's going to make it hard for them to move forward with their project without some sort of help here. So I'm all for making the city a good one, cleaner and better. So
Yeah.
Yep, I actually
agree.
commend them for that, because that's an area, I know when I first moved in, I came in that way, I was like, whoa, what did I get into coming to Goodland? But, so, yeah, any way we can clean that up, I think that's good.
Yeah. I agree.
And the variance, how about public interest?
I guess I don't see any adverse effects to public interest, and we're creating something better for the community, something new, something to bring people off the interstate. So seems like it fits to me. You guys agree?
Yeah.
How about the spirit and intent? Granting the requested variance will not be opposed to the general spirit and intent of the zoning regulations.
Yeah, I think in terms of just the size piece, doesn't seem like we're doing anything.
No, it's still in a well-established commercial zone. It's meeting the other criteria of the spacing.
Right.
And that's what you're trying to do with zoning regulations, make like interests be next to each other.
Yeah.
So, how about the minimum variance?
Yeah, looks like not asking to put a whole bunch of trailers on half an acre. So I would say we're talking about the least amount we could do here. You guys agree?
I agree with
Yeah.
that.
Okay. And then it has a recommended motion. I move to approve the variance for allowing the trailer camp to be on a lot smaller than 5 acres based on the following findings. And it can be all the ones you just stated within that, and I'll include that in the minutes, but.
All right, I'd entertain a motion on the piece around the size.
I second
No, that means I want one of you guys to make the motion.
Motion? I'll second it.
Give Grady a minute here.
Here, so a lot being smaller than 5 acres due to the limited amount of customers it can serve, is that what we're talking about? That motion?
Yeah,
So it's on page
Page 34, right?
34, yes.
Yeah, I move to approve the variance for allowing trailer camp to be on a lot smaller than 5 acres based on the following findings. A lot being smaller than 5 acres due to the limited amount of customers they can serve.
Give me a second.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the variance to allow the trailer camp to be on a lot smaller than 5 acres based on those findings. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Nay. Motion passes.
okay, that's on size.
On size.
Now we get to do the whole thing again
Yes.
on the facilities. And then we go through each of these again, and you have some findings regarding each one. So the uniqueness, the variance requested arises from conditions which are unique to the property in question, which are not ordinarily found in the same zoning district, and not caused by actions of the property owners or applicant.
So I can see it both ways on this one. Other than the size of their lot, that probably is what makes it unique because of the density, the rules around density of number of trailers, and then the size of the lot. You're not going to be able to get to have as many people stay as any other folks that are in the market. So, but at the same time, the code pretty well spells out what a trailer camp is.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, what makes it, I don't know that it's unique from if KOA was trying to come in right now and start, what would make it unique for them or why,
Yeah.
Granted, they're already established, so is the other one, but it is what it is. The code's pretty clear about that. So I need you guys to weigh in a little bit.
Well, yeah, what I'm seeing is you're gonna make your lot wide enough, like you said before, you can put your, get your extensions out, and that's gonna limit the size of how many people you can have on there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, sounds good.
And we don't have to take uniqueness first. I mean, if you don't have it, it's a hard. I mean, this is a hard question. That's why it comes up with a variance, is because it is hard.
Yeah. It's not as easy as the size one for sure. let's talk about, well, maybe I shouldn't move on. Grady or Wally hasn't weighed in yet.
I'm fine with it.
Grady, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. We were talking about the facility, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. The number of people and vehicles, I think it's gonna be okay.
I mean, that's probably where the uniqueness is created, in the fact that to follow the code and the ordinance today with the density, it makes them unique where the other facilities have quite a bit more space.
Right. And quite a few more customers.
Yeah, bigger customer base.
Okay. How about adjacent property? The granting of the variance regarding the sanitary facilities or will not materially be detrimental or adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners.
I don't see.
Oh, have we heard from any of the people that are close by there?
We didn't have any contacts besides the ownership of the KOA. We didn't have anybody else contact us regarding the notices that went out.
I almost lean towards not having the facility is probably more beneficial for the neighbors unless you guys figure out some way to have it locked except for your guests, because
I did have one of the neighboring facilities joke that, great, if their bathrooms go out, guess where we're sending our.
well, yeah,
You know,
I mean, I think,
And that's kind of where I'm going with it for the size, it's, you know.
and as I think about the other facilities in town, the KOA and Mid-America, I mean, you clearly are going to, there's people there, you're gonna pull through your gate. Nobody's just gonna pull in their used bathroom. It's pretty clear that that's not what that's for, versus one that's not staffed, sitting right on the highway.
Okay.
So I think we clear that one.
How about hardship?
For me, it's the same thing as the size one. With having to build the building, it looks like it's probably not feasible for them to continue with their project.
Yeah, especially the cost and, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The cost alone, like it says within that, it's not a sufficient reason by itself to justify the variance. But I think you bring up something else regarding the not staffed, makes it a little bit harder issue. So, how about the public interest?
Again, I think we're probably, it's probably in the public's interest to not create a roadside park.
Draw less attention, right?
And then the spirit and the intent will not be opposed to the general spirit and intent of the zoning regulations.
Yeah, I don't see any issues there.
Okay. And is it the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land or structure? And Zach put together some, the recommended motion, but also an alternate motion as far as, the trailer camp says one for females, one for males. Having a toilet, lavatory, and a shower or tub, which is pretty extensive bathroom facilities, based upon the following. But on the alternate motion, one of the alternatives was suggested to have one unisex lavatory. Trying to read within it. It's
Yeah.
and whatever conditions regarding that. And Zach, I don't know if you wanted to say anything more regarding that or no. But is it the minimum variance? There might be something in between the full set of facilities that was talked about and nothing at all. And I just point that out as staff, I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying it was a suggestion.
So there could be a smaller request or a smaller requirement, I guess, than a full-blown.
Right. It could. And it was just something that staff was looking through all the various things regarding it that we thought might be a possibility.
Can I interject? I will say originally, I read the original wrong. I thought when Zach and I talked, it was my misunderstanding that there would have to be one because of the size, anything under 20. That wasn't what it said at all. I misread it. But when I was originally pricing just one unit, your costs are not very much less. Because your main cost of your cement.
Everything's still there.
Everything's still
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still there, it's just not, the facilities inside are just not double. And
Yeah.
that's the only difference, but when I was just pricing one, I was looking at 45 to 50,000 for the whole thing,
Mm.
so. I mean, 'cause what you don't wanna do, in my opinion, is, it would be worst case scenario to put in something shoddy, that's gonna freeze, that's gonna not maintain itself, it's gonna fall apart, look like sin on the outside, than to not putting, to me, that'd be worse than not putting anything in. That's my personal opinion. So,
True, but that's up to the owner of the property, not to
exactly.
not to the city.
Yeah, I'm just,
So.
that's just my, yeah,
Have you thought of a name for it, or?
absolutely. Sunflower RV Park and Storage. Already got my stuff.
So I'm thinking about the minimum requirement. I mean, we're basically looking at the language of the code or the ordinance as it stands today. And so, this is, the extra wording is sort of looking for middle ground. So if we just look at what the code or the ordinance says today, they're asking us to only have a variance on that building. So
Yep.
to me, that meets the minimum. We're not asking for anything else.
Right, they're not asking for anything more than that.
Okay, well then I'd say that's probably a yes for them.
Now that we've gone through all those findings on each of those items, now there's a couple different, and you can either, and the recommended motion could be I move to approve, or I move to deny, or I move to, have an conditional acceptance based on something. But what I would take since you said yes to all these different findings, if you want to approve the variance of not having a facility, I would just change that recommended motion to I move to approve the variance for not having one facility for females and one for males, having a toilet, lavatory, and shower tub based upon the following findings. There wouldn't be those findings, it'd be what you've said here.
So before we get to a motion, I want to ask a question around this difference in the language between an RV park and a trailer camp.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that we're going to have to change the language so that we square that up. But it also says in here that we could withdraw it and they could come as an RV park and essentially get what they want
Right, correct,
without us granting a variance.
correct.
But I don't know where your head is on where we're going to go. The RV park. So here's
Well,
what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to weave this through a loophole.
Well,
That's
the
what
hardest,
I'm trying not to do.
the hardest part for us, for staff, is we know this is a deficiency to have two different things.
Right.
And if you were, and there's no the other part, in getting to the end question, which is where I go, and I may not be going through all the steps, but we'll craft an ordinance to address the deficiency. But there's no guarantee that's what will be approved.
That's right.
So even if we would have a recommendation from staff to have restroom facilities because it's in one, it's not in the other. Just because of certain situations, we're worried about it. Well, we don't have to have one, and if there's no requirement for one, what's that gonna cause? But if we suggest an ordinance and it's not approved that way, then we are gonna end up with just the RV park. This whole thing about trailer camp, and they throw in mobile homes and mobile home parks in that same section, in section 9, or chapter 9 of the code. We need to get all the RV stuff together and all the mobile home camps together, or mobile home parks together, separate them.
Yeah.
And have them in different sections
two
of the
different
code and be
definitions.
clear.
Mhm.
And that's what the problem with this thing is it's not clear.
Yeah.
And the variance request, yes, the easy way out is, well, easy sort of, is to withdraw and to make an application as an RV park. We had sent out the notification, we felt we needed to continue with the hearing, because people notified that there is a hearing, want to at least have the meeting so they could hear this, and also set the foundation for what the code change we're gonna, put together
Mhm.
to recommend to happen. But there's no guarantee where that end result will be. And we wanted to get some feedback from y'all regarding the requirement for a service building.
Yeah.
And that the KOA and the Mid-America Camp Inn, of course, both of those have other parts of the facility help make that a reasonable accommodation. With number of sites, with a management person on the property, and with Mid-America Camp Inn, they also, have run in the past. I don't know if they do it right now. They have the
Both.
RV and then,
Yeah.
a housing development.
Yeah.
So it's kind of both. So they have things that help make it easier to have those type of things. Whereas this one, because of the size, makes it,
Yeah.
makes it an issue. So as we're creating the ordinance, I wanted to have this discussion so staff knows what would be more likely or what's the justification that needs to be there. But for at this point, yeah, I mean, withdrawing the variance because of this discrepancy would make it cleaner.
So let me tell you guys where my head's at, and then you can see if I'm crazy. I'm hesitant to grant a variance because of the discrepancy in the wording between the ordinances and code. I think that needs to be cleaned up, and there's going to be a window in time here where that needs to get done, which means that Doug and April could probably come back as an RV park, and we're within the code or the ordinances today for them to do that. And then, to the point in this alternate motion about no other trailer camps, the way it's defined today, everybody else has facilities already. And then, yeah, there's probably some campers out there who don't have facilities or would want, something. So, I would feel better about either withdrawing the variance or denying that one and then having them come back with the RV park
The RV park application.
and then between now and the near future, let's get this ordinance cleaned up and probably put some definition around size and scope and all those sorts of things on how that needs to look, so that, because it appears we're living in the 70s in the ordinance,
Yeah.
and the code is much more
Yeah.
recent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking about this whole, as popular as campers are, and if we grant a variance that we don't have to have a building now, everybody who's got a lot can now have, have some campers stay. and without, you know, if this is successful, I could see it snowballing a little bit. So I don't know.
How long, I guess, for our part, for the business side of it,
Until the ordinance is cleaned out.
I mean, we kind of,
Right.
I mean, we've kind of sat on the whole pattern for a while. I mean,
Right.
it takes 6, 8 months. I mean, we really can't move forward out there until we know that. I mean, we
If you-
can start the storage part, but the dirt work all really needs to be done first. And
Yeah.
part of that dirt work depends on whether this is approved or not. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I don't disagree with what you're saying. So I think if I understand it, if we withdraw that, then once you get the other part in place, then we would have to come back again.
No, today you could come back tomorrow with an RV park application because of the way the code and the ordinances read today.
Okay. And that, the RV park does not have that in it.
Does not have that
So
in
if
there.
6 months from down the road, you put something in place that requires that, because we're in place, we don't
That
have
would,
to abide by that? Let's say we don't start building, I mean, we wanna get it started, but maybe we can't until spring. The RV ordinance
Yeah,
is
where's-
changed and updated in January, does that mean if you approve it next month, but we don't build until
yeah, I don't know
spring?
what the answer to that.
Does
That
that
probably
make
is.
That's
a-
more on the permit application, and usually permit applications. What is it good for, Zach, 180 days or?
180 days.
Yeah, usually it's 180 days.
Well, but the park side of it is totally gonna depend on the termination here. Does
Right.
that make sense, what I'm saying? So if we reapply, you approve it as a RV park, let's say winter hits fast, we can't build till spring, but we've already got the approval to do it without the facilities, can you guys come back and say, oh no, we've changed that, and you have to have facilities?
Once you've already had the site plan review and you pull a building permit, the building permit is 180 days.
Right,
It's good
and
for
that's
them.
kind of a
Yeah.
separate,
That's kind of the
okay,
the
I mean, that's what I.
time
So-
determinant. I mean, you can do it like 2 years later.
Okay. But as long.
I think
as-
as long as you're within your building permit is valid and you're within that window, you're operating under the way it reads today, even if something changed in the next 6 weeks. But if you let that expire, then you have to go to whatever it goes to.
But I guess the plan itself, to me, I look at it as two separate issues, maybe I should be. The plan itself has to be approved, and then the permits applied for. Right?
Right.
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
so that's what I'm talking about, that window there. Maybe the plan's approved, and then you guys come back and put something in, and it's like, come springtime, it's like, oh, we approved that plan, but now we won't approve the permits because, or whatever, because now we have to have this, and this.
No, I think as long as you think you're gonna roll in the next 180 days, you need to pull a permit.
Well, the site plan for the RV park, which we can review, it's not an RV park, you're putting it as a trailer camp right here. But if you we can look at it for general information and make it very quick. But if you submit, like, tomorrow, and say it's RV park instead of trailer camp, change the name of the top and it's submitted, it will be, then the site plan will come on these guys' next meeting, next month. And any code change also comes to this text amendment for the zoning ordinance, comes to these guys first. So it'll be at the same meeting, but the site plan will be approved before an ordinance is passed, is what it would go at.
We basically would review the ordinance and then give our recommendation to the commission for them to approve. So then you gotta wait till the next commission meeting and get on that agenda. So
Right.
there's a lot of time that's gonna,
So it'll probably be about 45 to 60 days before an ordinance is changed regarding it. But we will, your RV park site plan can be approved as of the next meeting if it's submitted within a week or two.
So I hate to be redundant, but just so I'm clear. Because I was gonna start spending a bunch of money on it. And well, we already have, never mind. More money. Once the site plan's approved,
And if you get the building permit, then you're good.
But are you saying that we can't, we won't be able to get the permits until the ordinance is changed? That's where I'm kinda getting a little stuck there that. I mean, I'm not saying we have to have it today or tomorrow, but we got a lot of things to work out, like dirt. But,
Matt said, as long as you pull that permit before the actual city commission chooses to change the wording of the
that's
bill
what you
there,
fall under.
that's what will fall under.
Yeah.
But if that permit expires within that time period and it does change and you have to pull a new permit, that's when you'll have to follow the updated code.
Actually, you can pull a building permit the same time you put in for a site plan review, because that's part of the reason for the site plan review. As it says, the building official shall require that all applications for building permits for developments in the multifamily, commercial, and industrial zoning districts be subject to site plan review in accordance with these regulations.
So is, because I don't know the workings of that, so to put in the quote RV park, that is permitted. I mean, it's not permitted. We have to have a permit for even to move the dirt and put that in, or no, or just the buildings?
Just the buildings.
Okay, that's fine. That's
I mean,
fine.
well, and also,
Yeah.
I mean,
So maybe that time frame is irrelevant, yeah, it doesn't.
I mean, you still have the spaces, you have the utilities to
Right,
the site. That's part of the site plan review process,
Right.
so it's,
right.
I mean, you're gonna pull permits to do the water and the sewer and the electrical.
That's-
They're already
But
pulled
for
for
the
some,
electrical, it's already there.
yeah.
We mean running the electrical from the meter to the
Yeah,
actual.
and that's what I
site.
was trying to get at, is that a permit to do that part of it?
That is,
Okay,
those are permits, and then
Okay.
when you, then the site plan review is as part of that.
okay, that makes sense, like I said, we're getting as educated as you guys are. And I don't mean to confuse you guys, because when Zach and I first started looking at this, we're like, oh, wait, there's a lot of controversy there, so which way do I go?
Well, hence why I think Kent got this commission reestablished, is because we have a lot of work to do. So,
My dad was on this commission, like, way, probably back when those were originally, well, no, even before 72, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember some of this discussion.
So the question is, at this point, should they just withdraw and we don't need to address the second piece, or should we, since
That's
we've
up to
already,
the applicant. That's not our choice.
Okay.
But asking the applicant if they would, if they wanted to at this point, they can, or they can ask you that we don't want to withdraw, then we have to continue.
okay, so that's where we're at. So the options are, you can withdraw and resubmit as an RV park, or we can move and vote on what we want to do about this variance about the building.
The other way
I suspect you have a pretty good idea where it's headed.
I guess my big hangup is that timing. I mean, I know how, what do I say, policies and procedures, how long it can take to implement them, and what I don't wanna do is get hung up in that. If we can, I mean, we can't move forward right now, because, there's a lot of things
Right.
we can't get in place because of hiring people to do it. But yet I don't wanna have the dirt mover call and say, hey, we have dirt, I can do it next week, and yet we're not scheduled to re-meet again for
But,
another month.
but you're okay as far as submitting under an RV park
Yeah, the way it
fairly quickly.
the way it reads right now, you could submit as an RV park and begin.
Okay.
The
Like,
code
Yeah,
allows,
Zach
I mean,
is
I don't
like,
think we're gonna
sort
have
of,
people
but-
that
Well,
do
yeah.
half-assed,
Sort of.
The next planning commission.
So another month.
yeah,
No.
3, not,
Next planning
Oh, the
Yeah, we're
6th.
we're out of cycle right now on this
Oh.
meeting, so it's not that long.
10th of
Okay.
October, so.
Well, practically, we probably can't get somebody, I mean, that's our thing, is I didn't, I mean, when you're relying on other people to do things.
Yeah.
What I sure don't wanna do is, I mean, we are trying to beg people to come and move dirt and level that place out, and try to get some dirt, which is another discussion, but anyway. And then them call and say, oh, guess what, we found a bunch of dirt, we can start next week, and I'm like, oh, no, we can't, cause we don't have a plan in place to do that. So if we can, if we withdraw, do it as an RV park, I like to repeat myself because
Okay.
I have to make sure I'm clear
Yeah.
with you guys. Then that will go to the next commission on the 10th.
On the 10th.
Then, as long as the permits are in place, if you change that in there, we're all good.
As long as your permit's valid, so you have yeah, you'd be good for 180 days.
So winter comes, spring happens, then we can go again, you bring that. That's, I mean.
Yeah.
We're gonna get something up.
Well,
Could they renew a permit before the permit was due? If they thought it was extended, if they
During
thought.
the good date, I can give an extension on
Okay.
it,
Okay.
but there has to be work actually being done.
Right,
Okay.
if,
There,
like winter hits and they can't do things, or the contractors
yeah.
don't get there when they're saying, if we contract somebody, they say they're gonna be there next week, and you know how contractors are, they're not there for 3 months.
okay.
I don't even make decisions like that, you guys are. Okay, I would say we will withdraw and I'll submit an application, maybe not tomorrow, but
Right.
the next day, or.
In the next few days, so we can make sure we get it on that 10th
We're gonna call
agenda.
it, yeah, we're gonna call it an
RV park.
just like the name says, Sunfire RV Park and Storage.
There you go.
We can always meet before October 10th, couldn't we?
We could.
Yeah.
We just have to follow the guidelines for the notice,
Absolutely.
right? So. as long-
Yeah, and the site plan is not, there's no noticing required.
Okay.
So then I can visit with Zach to see, I mean, technically, I can just leave all the paperwork in,
I'll send you
what needs to be done to change the name.
what's required for the RV park opposed to the trailer camp, that way we have it all submitted.
Exactly. I think that's fine. I'll be fine either way.
It requires a slightly different set of things, but not extremely to where you're gonna have to. Yeah.
My Adobe PDF.
Okay. So that part, the second variance request has been withdrawn, so.
Since it has been withdrawn, I would ask the board then to, actually, we don't have anywhere to go. I don't think you need a motion to table. I
Okay.
think you're all right the way it is.
Okay. So with that, the next agenda item was our site plan review, but honestly, we're gonna do that at the next meeting, so in the spirit of avoiding redundancy,
Yes.
can we will just essentially table that until
Yep.
next meeting.
And you
And-
had the information, and if there's any questions that come up for y'all, be prepared at the next time we meet.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so that ends that part of that, so I think we have a plan forward. Well, so you're all welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. We probably don't have much left, but you're free to go as well if you're ready to get out of here. I'm gonna make these guys go through some real formal stuff that feels awkward, so.
Your meeting will be a lot shorter as soon as.
I'm always good for input, so.
Yeah,
Thank you, guys. I do appreciate it. Like I said, it's been a big learning curve for us. We were used to.
Yeah.
You grew up 25 miles out in the middle of nowhere, and well, I grew up a mile from town. I
Yep.
had Steve lots, still living after work. worry about it, except for the neighbor.
Yeah.
I've got things around here, the neighbors that complain about the irrigation, others that live at half the irrigation, others that.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys, I
You
appreciate
bet.
it.
Thank you.
And I'll get
Yeah,
this back
thanks.
and
Thank you.
if you could email that, yeah, cause I'm school tomorrow, so.
You bet. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so let's move on to reports. Grady, anything from a planning commissioner report from you?
Nothing to report.
Dennis, anything? Wally?
No.
Well, nothing to report other than people keep asking me, when are they going to improve 8th Street?
I think that's coming.
Coming, but we've been hearing that now. I thought we already had a tax approved to pay for it.
We did. The tax just started to be collected in July. So there's not much
Not
money
much
in the
money
bank
yet.
right now. The plans, we have a contract to develop plans and specifications for A Street with EBH. And they're gonna be finishing those up. They just finished up the industrial park, or did. That's the main thing they're working on, because that's a grant approved project, and that money needs to be spent within a certain amount of time. The tax is for 20 years, so we'll end up having to borrow money and then pay it back with the tax in order to construct the project. We're looking to have A Street possibly be started in the second half of next year, but we'll see. We got the grant as well to do Caldwell from 10th to 17th as far as the middle 2 lanes, a mill and overlay. So we'll see how those projects work together.
With that said, is that, I know we talked about redoing, not the sidewalks, but having a walkway or rideway for bikes and such. Is that included in that, or?
A Street, there's every intention, or I've been told by this city commission when we present plans, to make sure there's sidewalks
Great.
included on that, on 8th. Now, the cost share grant that was approved for Caldwell is just for the middle 2 lanes and the intersections. So there's nothing regarding sidewalks on that grant. And then as far as the industrial park, there's no. That's just trying to get streets, water and sewer built out there.
Would that be on both sides of 8th Street, or just probably one side?
At least one side. We'll have to see regarding cost. The other thing, we may talk to you guys about this too, or when they have the plans, is do we, in order to construct those sidewalks, do we take up a little bit of the street in order to construct those sidewalks? Because it's such a wide street, it's only a
Pretty wide.
2-lane street. There's not a whole lot of parking. I mean, people don't park on 8th.
Not necessarily. No.
I mean, once you get to Sherman or Grand, that way.
Yeah.
From there on to Caldwell, yeah, there's parking on 8th
Yeah.
at times. But that way, really not. Not in front of your old house, right? Well, there wasn't hardly anybody parked on the street in front of there, did they?
My new place?
No,
Your old place.
Oh, no.
Or even any of your neighbors there.
No, there was hardly anybody parking along there. Once in a great while.
On the south side of the street, there's 1 or 2 that park on the street.
Yeah.
But that's one of the questions. Do we take up part of the road surface, even if it's still part on even though it's part of the right of way, the part that's grass right now on some of those lots? Do we use a couple feet from that and 3 feet from the road, or, some combination
Figuring it out.
to make a 4 or 5 foot wide sidewalk? And for ADA purposes, 5 foot's the minimum. Problem is, most of the sidewalks in town are
3 or less.
3 or 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pieces.
Okay. Well, good to hear about that progress. Wally, anything else?
No.
The only thing I'd bring up is just awareness around SCCD meeting tomorrow night. All things going on in Goodland. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but Sherman County Community Development,
Oh.
Julisa's organization, has a sort of a informational meeting, I think,
Oh, really?
at I think it's at the Warlock building. But it's a sort of a, I think she's doing like a community update about projects. You know, everybody's got hears rumors about what's coming and all that. So unfortunately, I have a conflict tomorrow night. But I was just thinking from our perspective, you know, there might be some stuff in there just for awareness of what's coming at us or may come at us.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys got going on, but
What time's that
My
tomorrow?
wife's in rehab in Aurora. I'll be heading there
you
tomorrow.
want to, yeah, I think it's from like 5 to 7 tomorrow.
Oh.
So
Okay.
I'll be busy, but otherwise I'll have to get an update later. So that's all I had. Staff reports. Anything?
I do have one thing, and well, Zach and I both have this one thing.
Okay.
The KOA has asked us, well, there's two things. KOA has asked us about, they've been having inquiries in order to have, you know, like you mentioned, their regular business is basically end of October,
Right.
beginning of November. And until April or May, they don't really open up again. But they've had inquiries or requesting for long-term stays. Now, in the RV park, the portion of the code, this is where the deficiency is on the trailer camp side. They don't have any, it's short-term stays only. There is no administrative provision for long-term stays. It has to be a variance request. In the RV park, it says, short-term occupancy shall not exceed 30 days, except as approved by the building official. So there's a provision for administratively saying it's okay to stay longer. Now, we don't check the current RV or trailer camps
Yeah.
regarding long-term. We don't know if someone's staying there long. We just haven't had any complaints, so there's not anything about that. But he's had specifically from the other people that are staying either at the other park in town or don't have a place to stay over the winter. And they would not open it up for regular business. They just have it for those long-term stays. And what staff was considering was there'd obviously need to be some parameters about it, saying it's the same folks. It's checked on regularly by management, and management can be reached if there is a problem. But we didn't have any other particulars, I don't think.
Just the time period of which it could occur.
Yeah, and then having an end point saying
Mm-hmm.
this is only during this time till April 1st or May 1st. I think they're mentioning May 1st. So from November 1st to May 1st, have possibility of having long-term stays. Do you guys have any things that you can see that would be problematic with that or other considerations for staff?
I think, especially in the place like the KOA, where they already are going to probably have a contract with those people about how they're going to stay and, you know, rates and all that. You know, I would guess that KOA would have something fairly formal. I don't see any problem doing something like that. I definitely think it's needed here. There was a time in my life where I would have appreciated having that opportunity. And I think KOA's current thing is like 14 days, you got to move. So, you know, they don't even allow it in season because they want to turn over their lots.
Right.
So,
I guess the only thing that would concern me is that they are requiring insulating their water lines and sewer lines to prevent issues from occurring into the city's utilities and services.
yeah. Yeah, there just need to be some safeguard to not put the city in jeopardy, I would think, but most of those guys, if they're gonna camp through the winter, they've got a 4-season camper anyway that's all heated and insulated, so it should be good.
If, that's good feedback for us, considering that issue, so. We'll be looking into it and going forward.
Pedestrian pathway, would that be something we do with these guys? How do we go about that?
Pedestrian pathway in terms of
Regarding sidewalks?
sidewalks, yes. Sidewalks, we've had, that's another issue that's become very particular, an issue. And in a couple locations, and it's in particular, but it's not even really about the location. I mean, it is in some senses. But right now, we have a code that says sidewalks, you know, how they should be built, where they should be put, those type of things. But we don't have anything currently in code that says if someone removes a sidewalk, do they need to replace it?
Mm-hmm.
And we're starting to have issues where, and it's costly to replace a sidewalk.
Mm.
But we have a lot of, I walk over horrible sidewalks getting home. You know, and then if the city would send a letter, you need to repair your sidewalk. Well, then an option always is to tear it out.
Yeah.
What does that do for pedestrian pathways around town, and especially in close proximity to schools,
Mm-hmm.
where we have, and specifically where we set up traffic crossings? You know, Caldwell is a particular one, and there's a resident there that's taken up old sidewalk, and we're giving him a quote in order to, you know, get it put in, back in. But the current code doesn't make it an absolute regarding sidewalk. So that really puts us in a predicament, tough situation. We don't have a pedestrian plan for the entire city. I've kind of been pushing that. I'm trying to find a way to get some funding to be able to put that together professionally and not just be guessing on a map what it should be. But it is important for people in order to get around town, at least in staff's estimation. And also to preserve, we have a lot of sidewalks in this town compared to a lot of towns. But we also have sidewalks that play Jenga or Tetris,
Right, exactly, yeah.
you know.
Yep.
And then if you remove sidewalk, what does that do to the rest of the block? You know, and, or in another situation, like we had the attorney point out, you know, it doesn't have, none of the other neighbors on the block have sidewalk.
Yeah.
Why should there be a prohibition from him? If he put it in, why can't he take it out? And we don't have good records. I assume most of the center part of town was done as a city project, but they have nothing to prove that. So what's your take regarding sidewalks and pedestrian paths?
Well, I think all of us are probably pretty strongly in favor of having a clear program and requiring it. I mean, I don't walk a lot, but the few times I have to walk through town, it's a mess. And then, yeah, I saw that one on Caldwell on some of
Right.
these really busy streets, and then the homeowner can take out a sidewalk on a place where it's needed more than anywhere. That's a little troublesome. So,
Well, no, I agree with you. I think that's something that the city needs to kind of focus on is sidewalks and pathways, whatever you want to call them. Now, I don't know if we necessarily need to put it on people's property, but like on Caldwell, that's wide enough. You can probably put it, you know, kind of like we're talking like on H Street. You know, maybe do a 4 or 5 foot pathway on one side. It doesn't have to be both sides. Something, even on Arcade, I don't think you guys got sidewalk
doesn't
on your street.
go, we do in front of our house, but it doesn't go all the way. It
Yeah.
starts and stops.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened. People have taken them out over the years.
Right.
So,
And it just gets problematic, and it needs
Right.
to be something consistent
mhm.
where you end up with difficult situations.
Yeah.
And especially in proximity to the main things, the schools, the hospital, the college,
Mhm.
Main Street, the connections to the commercial areas. You know, and the city doesn't, yeah, I don't think it has enough sidewalks around its parks, you know, that type of thing, but it is expensive. And so,
Well, I would like, nobody wants more government in their life probably, but
Mhm.
I would like the city to be able to have some teeth in the code to say, this is clearly what was intended and this is what needs to happen rather than well, you can do what you want. We really, can't do much about it. So,
we will probably bring you, there is something that needs to be cleaned up within the sidewalk code. And we will bring that text amendment to you for recommendation to the city commission.
Yeah.
And we'll hope to have that by the next meeting as well.
Well, one of the things I noticed is a lot of sidewalks are splitting people's yards instead of on the end of the road. Could we just say, can we put it by the curb and make that a standard? Isn't that part of the easement of the city?
Mhm.
So, then nobody can say anything about that, right?
I think
'Cause
that
we
ought
have
to be
that
part of
right.
the wording is a standardized recommendation or requirement for how it gets put in. If you're going to do sidewalk work, this is what you
Okay,
have to
so
do.
in front of my house, I have 3 big trees there, and it's like away from the house.
Yeah.
And then you go on down. Well, that block is pretty much all the way through, off of that. But if you wanted to do that, then I'd have to cut them trees down, which probably need cut down anyway.
It might be interesting to go see. I'll have to pay more attention. How many lots have trees right at the curb versus in the yard?
Well, I've got mine.
You've got
like
that way.
within. They're probably centered about 5 foot from the curb.
Yeah.
There is provisions about how close you can plant certain trees to sidewalks and curbs in the code already.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, well these are probably
Yeah. Those
I'm
got
gonna
in
say 60, 70
Yeah.
years
way
old.
before then.
So, once they die, they get removed, then planting future trees would just have.
You'd have to put them.
It'd have
I
to
could
go
see
back.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also it would help prevent damage to sidewalks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I have a sidewalk and it's like you.
It's like a BMX truck.
Pretty much.
Got an overpass.
Yeah. Pretty
Seek
much.
those out when I was a kid.
You could do jumps there.
Yeah.
Whoop-de-doos.
Okay, well, it sounds like more to come there then, huh?
Yes, sir.
Anything else from either you two? That's it.
Yeah,
All
we-
right.
We've had enough long discussions.
Yeah.
Minutes from the last meeting. I didn't have any changes. Anybody else have any changes or additions?
I wouldn't hear.
So with that, I move that we approve the August 2015, 2023 minutes as they are stated.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes. Approved minutes. Last thing, guys. I move we adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We're out.
Good deal.
Well, that was a big poll tonight, but that was good discussion.
I was just kind of a little confused though, so we did a variance for the